Hey guys, today's video we are going to once again be talking about Tropical Storm Bret. It is now a stronger tropical storm after dealing yesterday with a lot of problems with mid-level shear, which shear generally tears tropical cyclones apart and doesn't let them intensify and strengthen. So now today, though, it's been dealing with much better conditions, allowing it to strengthen to a stronger tropical storm, currently with sustained winds of 60 miles per hour and a central pressure of 1,001 millibars. It's moving to the west still at 15 miles per hour, so it's starting to slow down kind of and move at a slower pace. Now, Invest 93L, we'll talk about real quick here. It is still likely to develop into a tropical depression, and likely will develop into a tropical depression over the next day or so as it continues to move to the west and west-northwest. It already has sustained winds of 30 miles per hour, and so the shower and thunderstorm activity around it is showing signs of continued organization. So likely over the next day, if the shower and thunderstorm activity for this system is able to consolidate a little bit more, the National Hurricane Center will likely issue it as a official tropical depression, and we'll see if maybe it'll even end up becoming a tropical storm and be named Cindy, the next name on the name list for this year's hurricane season. Now let's focus really on Bret for the most part. Let's take a look at Bret's forecast track now. It is now likely to dissipate in the next 3 days by Saturday morning. But before that, it will be making landfall and impacting the Lesser Antilles, Leeward Islands, central and portions of the northern islands there that are under tropical storm watches and warnings, and will likely be impacting those islands as a strong tropical storm. Around a 65 mile per hour tropical storm is currently forecast. But since it is currently at 60 mile per hour tropical storm, we could see it maybe be a bit stronger at around a 65, 70 mile per hour tropical storm. And there is an outside chance maybe that it could become a hurricane for a very short little bit, but I think by the time it reaches the Leeward Islands, Lesser Antilles, it will be impacted by a bit stronger wind shear, so it likely will be a bit weaker as it makes landfall. So it will likely make landfall, I would say, probably around a 65, 70 mile per hour tropical storm. If that were the case and it were to strengthen a bit more now, it will likely start to weaken as it approaches and makes landfall in the Lesser Antilles. And then once it reaches the Caribbean, it will continue to weaken and the wind shear will continue to increase, so it will likely dissipate again by Saturday morning. Because of how strong that wind shear particularly is. Even though the sea surface temperatures, the waters in the Caribbean and the area it's in right now are very, very warm and much above average for this time of year, or even record-breaking above average temperatures for that area. So it's very interesting. The shear is really winning out for the system, and we expect that for this time of year. So now let's look at the recon mission that went in from the National Hurricane Center to survey the system and see how it's doing and see how strong it is. It looks like the pressure they found has remained steady around 1,001 millibars, and the winds that they found have been more up towards 55 to 60 knots, which means that possibly at the next advisory at 5 p.m. for this system, could be put up to like 65 miles per hour, 1,000 millibars. Tropical Tidbits has it at now. So it could be a bit stronger. The National Hurricane Center could put it a little bit higher and a little stronger. However, the pressure itself isn't too much of a change. However, the sustained winds within the system could be a decent bit higher. We shall see. Now, the general model track consensus, again, like what the National Hurricane Center's forecast cone currently shows, is that for the most part, basically 99% of the models all agree it's going to continue on this direct westward track through the Caribbean and likely dissipate by Saturday morning and become more of just a general remnant heavy rainmaker as it goes and possibly impacts the Central America area of Honduras, Nicaragua, and those areas. But in any case, let's look at the models real quick and show you what the models generally agree on. We'll first be looking at the GFS American model for Bret, and you can see this is Bret down here. Let's actually zoom in even closer. Let's do the Western Atlantic, and you can see this is Bret right over here. And we move this forward in time, and we get this towards about into tomorrow and into Friday now. It's likely going to be impacting the Leeward Islands, Lesser Antilles, towards overnight Thursday into Friday morning, early Friday morning, and then it will get into the Caribbean and continue to really fall apart and really weak. And you can see by 6Z Saturday, June 24th, which is about 2 a.m. Saturday, June 24th, it's now a very weak system, 1007 millibar low pressure, and as it continues, it will just degenerate into a more open wave and just continue maybe to bring heavier amounts of rainfall to parts of Central America. Now, you can see kind of just real quick, just touching upon it, it seems like the Eastern Pacific might be trying to develop a tropical cyclone towards next week, but that is quite far out, so we will have to monitor that. But the Eastern Pacific might be trying to wake up and start its hurricane season heading into next week. We'll have to monitor that and see. But for now, we're just focusing on Bret and what 93L, Invest 93L likely will become a tropical depression, even possibly a tropical storm soon in the coming days. So, but that system will likely remain out to sea. So, not too much of a worry with that system. Now, let's look at what the European model shows for Bret. And as Bret again continues and gets towards the Leeward Islands, impacts them towards overnight Thursday into early Friday morning. It will likely be somewhat of a weaker tropical storm, maybe, or moderate tropical storm. But the main thing, it will just be bringing heavier rain and strong or gusty winds. Then as it gets into the Caribbean, you can see the wind shear really takes a toll on it and really makes it, continues to weaken it. And then you can see by the time we get into the end of this weekend into the beginning of next week, it really just becomes nothing. It's just a lot of rain hanging around in the Caribbean and getting close to the Central America area. So that is what the European model shows. Now let's look at what the Canadian model shows for Bret. You can see the Canadian model shows it much weaker. Even right now, it shows that it seems to be a much weaker system. The Canadian model initializes it as, and as it approaches and impacts the Leeward Islands and stuff, it really shows it as a much weaker system. And then as it gets into the Caribbean, it really weakens and falls apart, and then impacts the Central America area of Nicaragua, Honduras as just a bit more of a heavier rainmaker. Just brings bit more heavier rain into that area. So that is what the general models show, the general global models show. Now let's see what the actual hurricane models show for it. So let's look at the HWRF hurricane model for Bret. We move this forward in time for the model, and you can see it has a system actually strengthening to a somewhat more stronger tropical storm as it impacts the Leeward Islands towards towards 8 a.m. Friday. It's really impacting him, has made landfall there. And then it gets into the Caribbean, and the HWRF really brings it more on a northerly track, which is interesting. It brings it up further north towards just offshore and south of Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic, Hispaniola, and really weakens it with the wind shear, but still has it has a low pressure center, still has it with a low pressure center until it hits the mountains of Hispaniola, and then it really falls apart there because of that. But the wind shear is going to be the big thing. It's going to really increase in the Caribbean and really make the system fall apart. That'll likely be what occurs with Bret once it gets to the Caribbean. This is the HMON model. This is the other major hurricane model for the system. Let's see what this model shows for it. You can see it shows it a much weaker system hitting the Leeward Islands and then to the Caribbean. Let's let it load there. Oh, there we go. You can see it still has a low pressure center, but then it kind of just goes straight through the center of the Caribbean, it seems. I think. Yeah, it just goes through the center of the Caribbean and up towards the Yucatan Peninsula. Or no, sorry, that's not the Yucatan Peninsula. That's towards the northern coast of Nicaragua and Honduras there. So that's what the HMON model shows it falling apart as it approaches Central America because of wind shear again. So that will be the general gist of Bret. And let's actually look at and see real quick what Bret looks like currently. This is the This is currently what Bret looks like with, you can see the convection is really starting to blow up a lot more around its center. The center is kind of more displaced over here, but the strongest convection is just to the west of the center and blowing up right around the center. So the system is definitely much healthier with general convection blowing up all around the center. Just the strongest part of the convection is really blowing up all to the west of the center. However, it is a much healthier looking system now, and will likely strengthen here and possibly be a little bit stronger at the next advisor at 5 p.m. from the National Hurricane Center, and we shall see. We shall see if it does strengthen a little bit more and gets towards that very strong tropical storm status, towards 70 miles per hour, and maybe it is able to pedal the shear and everything off a little bit more to maybe briefly become a hurricane. We'll see. But looks like for the most part, it will likely just peak as a strong tropical storm, impact the Leeward Islands as a stronger tropical storm, and then it gets into the Caribbean, the wind shear increases, and that will make the system really fall apart and dissipate by likely Saturday morning. So that is it for today's video, guys. I really hope you enjoyed today's video. Really, hopefully you found it informative, helpful, interesting. Comment down below what you guys think Bret will peak. What do you think Bret will peak as? Do you think it will get to hurricane status for just a brief bit, or do you think generally it will just remain tropical storm and peak as a strong tropical storm? And yeah, what do you guys think will happen with 93L as well? Comment down below. Let's have a nice lively discussion down there about these two systems, Bret and Invest 93L, which will likely become a tropical depression and maybe a tropical storm as well in the next coming days. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Like the video as well down below. Subscribe for more content like this. If you like this type of content, subscribe down below for future content like this. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.